Good evening. Thanks for joining us on the MJP Intel Report. We are very excited and honored to have two gentlemen with me to talk about their quest in saving children around the United States. I know both of these gentlemen personally. I know they are God-fearing patriots. I know they have a solid moral compass. And I would like to introduce to you Joseph Travers and Mark Gillespie. They are the founders of Saved in America, and they've also created a National Association for Missing and Exploited Children, which I am also a proud member of. We are a group of private investigators that assist law enforcement in finding missing children. I don't want to steal their thunder, so I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and we'll go from there. And if I've got some questions, I'll just ask. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time tonight to help us discuss this important topic that we really need to figure out here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So, Joseph, can you give us just a quick background as to your background, and we would like to get Mark's as well to kind of give our viewers. I mean, I know who you are, but most of my viewers don't. So please explain.
Well, sure, I'll go ahead and start out. My background, United States Navy, ended up getting out of the military from the Navy to Los Angeles County Sheriff's Academy. Ended up working in law enforcement. We're talking about from the 70s to the 80s. To the vast majority of the 80s and most of it in East Los Angeles and South Central Los Angeles, very highly gang infested. And I worked a lot of gangs suppression, narcotics units within that time, and policing. And eventually I left to go into the private sector and to become a licensed private investigator, and eventually owned the largest private investigation school in the country. From that, I ended up going to back to school. I had my degrees, California State University at Long Beach, went to grad school, and going to Bible college. And this happened around 1995. And when I graduated from Bible college, of course, you do certain ministries, and I was ordained in 2000. And at the time had a ministry for abused women and children, actually next to the Bible college campus in Marietta Hot Springs in Southern California. And at that time, I got to know Pastor Jeff Smith, who was the son of Pastor Chuck Smith, the founder of Calvary Chapels worldwide. And I was known at the time as the Renegade because some of the things I did in policing in the 80s were done on the movie TV series Renegade. And Pastor Chuck wanted to get to know the Renegade. He says, so Jeff said, hey, the Renegades at your Bible college? And he says, oh, let me introduce them to me. So we rode our Harleys up to Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, and the Pastor Chuck, and ended up doing a lot of ministries with Pastor Chuck. But I was doing some homeless ministries, counseling ministries, and eventually I was looking for another ministry around 2009. And at that time, what happened to me in policing in the 80s, we saw this, what I call an evil triad of the street gangs, the prison gangs, and the cartels that have got together and organized drug trafficking in this country in the late 80s and into the 90s. And a lot of things that start in California spread across the country, and this evil started in California. And it has to do with the formation of the different gangs, whether they're white, black, or Hispanic, because as we know, in law enforcement, it's all very divided by race. So for example, you have your white gangs, which are your white supremacist gangs. You have your black gangs, which are some type of denomination from the Crips or the Bloods. And then you have your Hispanic gangs, which are 18th Street and now MS-13. And then when you end up in the prison gangs, you go in the white gangs to the Aryan Brotherhood or Nazi lowriders, from the black gangs to the Black Guerrilla family. And from the Hispanic gangs, either some sort of kickoff from the Southern California Mexican Mafia or La Nostra Familia. And from that, they go across the country. So what happened is, and just so your audience really understands how this kind of works, is the Mexican Mafia and the Aryan Brotherhood in the end of the 80s got together with the Mexican cartels. And at that time, the Mexican cartels were starting to feel the heat from Ronald Reagan's war on drugs, starting in 1980, going through the 80s. And as we were, as law enforcement is in this country, which is very proficient, started arresting these cartel members, they started going to our prisons. Well, at that time, the prison gangs unfortunately ran the prisons, both state and federal. So the prison gangs would offer protection for the cartels, but they wanted the balance sheet that were going to the street gangs, because the entrance exam for a prison gang was two conditions. Number one, you have to be a street gang member. And then number two, you have to commit a murder for the prison gang to become a prison gang member. So for example, if I'm with, say, 18th Street in Southern California and I go to prison and I'm selling drugs, because that's what they do, and I'm not paying my taxes, or for your church-going audience, your tithing, giving your money to the prison gang, when I get to prison, I have a long list of prison gang members that want to kill me to become a prison gang member if I haven't been paying my taxes. So that's that control, and that control actually took its full force and effect in the 90s going into the 2000s. Well, the same syndicate, what I call again the evil triad, the street gangs, the prison gangs, and the cartels, decided to take over child sex trafficking around 2008. And the reason they did that is because once the street gangs sell their drugs, the drug is gone, you have to get new product. But you can sell a girl over and over and over again and use her and manipulate her and move her around the country. So in 2009, I read a story about a young girl named Brittany Drexel. Brittany Drexel was a child in upstate New York that decided to run away from home to go down to South Carolina for spring break in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, with some of her friends that were already over 18. And there was a photo of Brittany leaving a hotel in Myrtle Beach, and that's the last thing anything saw of Brittany. And I looked at this picture and I thought to myself, I hope this evil child sex trafficking organization hasn't gotten a hold of Brittany. Well, about a month later, also 2009, I read an article in the Orange County Register here in Southern California about United States Navy SEALs going across outside of country and rescuing girls in other nations. And I got a hold of these guys and I said, you realize that what is happening here in this country, that we are having children, our American children, enslaved by this evil triad? And they had no idea. So we got together and formed this organization, what we know now as Saved in America. And we basically formated three pillars. One of the pillars was that we would all be volunteers. We wouldn't take money. Number two, we would never accept money from parents to do what we did. And number three, we would all be former special operators or former police officers who become licensed private investigators. We did our first operation December 2014, helped law enforcement recover a 14-year-old girl that was being trafficked since 11 years old. And to this date, we have now assisted parents and law enforcement in the recovery of 250 children, the last one actually 3 days ago from Reno, Nevada.
Very nice. Very nice. Very nice. So Mark, can you tell us a little bit about you? How did you get involved with Joseph and bring all this to fruition?
Sure. Well, first of all, let me say thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight with Joseph. Joseph is one of my best friends and colleagues in the PI world. A little bit about myself. I started off, I was an officer in the Air Force, spent a career in the Air Force. I was in the Air Force, I was a special agent in the Air Force Office of Special Investigations. I took an early retirement to become the forensic director of Austin Police Department. My background is forensics. I have a master's of forensic science from George Washington University. I spent a number of years at Austin Police Department. Had a great time there, reorganized, just basically refurbished, built the crime lab and forensic science services. I then started a forensic science undergraduate degree program at St. Edward's University here in Austin, which is a small Catholic private school. Taught there about 8 or 9 years. And in 2004, while I was still teaching, I got my PI license. All of these things were bucket list items: OSI special agent, crime lab director, professor of forensic science. And then the last bucket list item was to become a PI. So I became a PI in 2004. My company name is Gillespie Forensics and Investigations. I'm a past president of the Texas Association of Licensed Investigators, also known as TALI, at which time I met Joseph. I think Joseph, it was about 2008 or 2009. He was the president and one of the leaders of the California Association of Licensed Investigators. And Joseph and I formed a very close bond and friendship. And, you know, a couple times a year, we would go to several PI conferences throughout the nation. And we just, our relationship just grew stronger. Back in 2000, I think it was 2015 or 16, you might have to refresh my memory, Joseph, but I knew Joseph was always passionate about missing and exploited children and getting involved to recover and rescue child victims of that. And he sent me an email wanting to know if I would write a foreword to his bestseller. Basically, you know, it was an excellent book that he wrote about conducting operations to recover and rescue exploited children, sexually exploited and trafficked children. So I wrote a foreword which was probably larger than his first chapter, and I say that as a joke, but I guess he liked it okay because it was included in his book, and I was honored to do that. But in that foreword, you know, I cited Joseph as one that his passion is to slay dragons, and human traffickers are the dragons that he is trying to slay, and he's been very successful at doing that. I'm very passionate about doing whatever I can to find missing persons, missing children, and to combat child exploitation and human trafficking. After Joseph and I collaborated on his book, and after he wrote it, as he was writing his book, I truly feel this is a God thing. We basically picked up the phone at the same time. He was calling me, I was calling him. And I said, Joseph, and he had the same thought. We need to start a professional association to help bring in private investigators across the country and internationally to help combat human trafficking. And so that was basically the seed that was planted, and the result of that was the National Association for Missing and Exploited Children. I don't know what our current membership is, but basically NAMIC, which Joseph was the president. We both were co-founders. I became the chairman of the board. It's basically to use the network of private investigators across the nation as boots on the ground to help supplement the police efforts to try to recover and rescue the thousands upon thousands of children who've fallen prey to human trafficking. And I'm proud of that association. I'm very passionate, just like Joseph and many others, you, Mike, as well, to do what we can to help save the lives of these innocent human beings, precious human beings that are treated worse than animals are treated by very, very vicious people, not only in the U.S. but all over the world. So that's how that's a little bit about my past, my career, my relationship with Joseph, how Name It got started. I specialize in cold cases, missing persons, criminal defense, and I just hope that whatever we accomplish here tonight, that it will be useful to people all over the world to help instill greater passion in the lives of those people to do what they can, no matter how small, but to do what they can to help reduce incidents of human trafficking. It's a heinous crime. It's one of the biggest money makers in the world, and it's got to stop. And I think that every one of us has something inside of us that can help bring an end to this tragic epidemic.
Well said. Thank you. Well, Mark, I've known you for what, 2-3 years. Joseph, I've only haven't known you that long. But the last, I think when I was elected on the board of Texas Association of Licensed Investigators, Joseph put on a very, very powerful presentation during that, and that's what kind of sparked me. I actually stood in the back of the room and I was crying, watching all the stuff that he had put up there in the videos and all the success that he had, and that's why I became a member, because I wanted to involve myself with that. What I think it's important to know, and either Mark or Joseph can answer this, the mission of the missing and exploited children. A lot of people don't understand that they look for law enforcement to go out and do this stuff. And there's organizations like this one and many others where PIs are involved, and we're licensed, and we don't charge the money, but we go out there and we do the boots on the ground. We'll sit there for 3, 4, 5, 6 days, a week, 2 weeks, watching for things and doing surveillance work, things that police don't have the opportunity to do. And I don't think a lot of people understand the magnitude that there are people out there in our profession that are not out there to make money necessarily. We just want to make a difference. So if either one of you could speak to that, that'd be I think that'd be very very informative.
Joseph, why don't you go ahead and I'll follow up. Well, I think you're absolutely.
Okay, so the story, a 14-year-old girl named Hannah went missing in Sparks, Nevada. And mom, of course, goes into her room to take her to school, and the window's open and Hannah's gone. So mom calls the police department in Reno and says, hey, my daughter's missing. So they come over and they take a report and they ask mom, do you know why your daughter's missing? And mom says, I really have no idea. I came in here to take her to school and the window's open and she's gone. Well, the reason mom had no idea, because the answer lied in the cell phone on the social networking. And what had happened is, well, to stay with the story, the patrol officer says, okay, says, does she have any health issues that could be, she could die from? No. So you have no idea someone like maybe kidnapped her or anything? No. So of course, the patrol officer writes a report, puts her in NCIC, National Crime Information Center, run by the FBI. So if a police officer pulls her over and she tells the police officer her true name, he'll know she's a runaway and be able to bring her home, right? So then, of course, the report goes to a detective, and it takes 5 to 7 days because most officers now have 5 to 7 days to finish the reports, goes to the detective. And the person who works in missing persons or juveniles as a detective in most police departments, they might have a few hundred cases that they have to go through this all by themselves. So from the time the child goes missing till the time a detective gets to see the case will be 10 days at the soonest, and maybe longer. Well, there was a study done by Madera County, which says that a missing runaway is within 48 hours, 60% of them are approached by a child sex trafficker. So we call that the golden 48. So if you look at this, now a detective's not going to get this information for 10 days. Within 48 hours, 60% of all runaway children will be approached by a trafficker. There's this missing area here, and that's what Saved in America and now the National Association of Missing and Exploited Children try to fill that gap because the police don't have the resources to fill it. So what happens is it's a race against the clock. Let's get this girl. So let's go back to Hannah and Reno. So now Hannah's gone. So mom's calling the police and the detective, as of course she would. Where's my daughter? Where's my daughter? Of course, the police have nothing for her, right? In the first few hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, 36, 48 hours. So what do you tell them, mom? Where's my little girl? Police say, well, we're working on it, right? Because they don't have the resources to go after it. Well, fortunately, mom finds out about us, Saved in America. She calls us. We get on it right away and we find the answer. The answer, of course, was intersocial networking. What happened was a 26-year-old gangbanger from 18th Street in San Diego, affiliated with the Mexican mafia, prison gang, and the cartels, had got a hold of her through recruiters somehow on social networking and befriended them, talked her out of leaving her home to go with them down to Baja California. So he arranged it so she would leave through this series of promises on social networking that her life would be so much better, that it was so much more beautiful, that she was so much more deserved better treatment that her parents were doing. Everything that a junior high school kid would go through in their mind, thinking, you know, am I right to be with my parents, or does somebody know better? And then, of course, these traffickers know how to do this. They know how to do the psychological thing with their mind. So he gets her, coaxes her to leave and leave with him. He drives her down to Rosarito Beach in Mexico, fills her up with heroin right away, beats her up, and starts to traffic her. And we find her location, and we work with the federales in Mexico, federal law enforcement here in this country, and with the Sparks, Nevada Police Department, end up getting her back. And your audience can go to YouTube, Saved in America, Saved in America Mom, and you'll see the mom with an interview when we bring her back over the border to reunite her and take her down to rehabilitation. And the bad guy goes to jail, and right now he's serving an 8-year prison term in Nevada State Prison. And that's what happens. So it's what we're talking about. There's a gap that needs to be filled between the time a child runs away and the time the police, with the limited resources, and even more so, here, let's just talk about recently, the last 6 months, this chaotic, ridiculous defund the police issue, right, with the social justice thing. You're gonna defund the police when they don't even have the resources to go after these missing children in the first place? National Center for Missing and Exploited Children says at any one time in this country, you can go look it up, missingkids.org, 300,000 missing kids right now in America. American children, not born children. There was another study done in coordination with the Department of Justice 2 years ago with Dr. Amy Carpenter from the University of San Diego, which, and this is in the book, in the back of the book, Investigation of Missing and Exploited Children, the Gateway to Child sex trafficking that Mark was referring to. It's now in its 4th edition, which says that a minimum of 30% of all missing children, runaway missing children, are right now being trafficked. So you take those statistics together and you have to come to the conclusion that as we speak, you and I right now, there's 100,000 children being trafficked, slave traded in the United States, American children. And this is just unacceptable. So you need people like licensed private investigators, retired and current police officers, former special operators to band together to assist the police in this gap of when these children are being coerced psychologically through social networking to leave the safety of their home, their family, and their friends and go to these traffickers, which are used to doing this because they're the same traffickers, the drug dealers that are bringing all these drugs over the border. And it's become now in the year 2021 that you show me a pimp, I'll show you a gang member, I'll show you a trafficker. They're all one and the same.
You know, Joseph brought up, he used the word runaway. And that's probably one word in my vocabulary that I despise. And I think our society, especially our law enforcement culture, our law enforcement community, we need a paradigm shift. We need to start looking at the word runaway as a potential victim of sex trafficking. One of the greatest frustrations I have as a private investigator working missing person cases is that when I interface with local law enforcement to either report or to follow up on a report of a missing person, I would have to say a large majority of those cases are considered by local law enforcement as runaways. So they have a system in place that deals with runaways, that deals with what they're going to do to investigate a runaway. They're not going to do anything until 48, 72 hours at a minimum before they really start looking into the issue of the person that's missing. And when you think of it, just think of yourself as a parent, and most of us are parents. Think if our 15, 16, 17-year-old child came up missing, every second of every minute of every hour of every day that's a lifetime. And just imagine how far or how much can happen to our child, in a matter of minutes. I mean, they've vanished, they're gone, and they may never return. So, as I said, one of the biggest frustrations I have when dealing with law enforcement is that they are a bureaucracy. They have guidelines, they have SOPs, they have general orders, they don't put runaways or missing persons on the top of their priority list. And generally speaking, they get to it when they can. But the system that they operate in is they're overwhelmed with work anyway. So I'm not here to say or bash law enforcement that they're not doing anything. They're just overworked. They have so many cases, and it's kind of like, sit back, take a number, we'll get to it when we can. And as far as runaways go, the statistics show that 1 in 6 runaways is likely a victim of child sex trafficking. 1 in 6. Look down your street, count 6 homes, pick one, that's a tremendous statistic. 56% of the female runaways, they end up in child sex trafficking, and the average age is 15 years old. And this is as recent as 2019. So I look at a runaway, I look at a missing person not as a runaway, but as a strong potential of being a person that is destined to be trafficked by criminals all over the country, all over the world. And that's why it's so important for us to realize that private investigators, we can fill a huge void. There's a huge gap. I just wish that law enforcement would recognize our experience, our expertise, our resources, and our time availability that can stand in the gap, that can do things that they can't do or they won't do because they're handcuffed to a desk full of literally hundreds of reports that they're trying to deal with. So, and that's why I'm so happy and proud of Joseph for helping create National Association for Missing and Exploited Children so that we can contact and build a network of thousands of PIs across the country to launch their investigative teams on a minute's notice to help doing what police aren't able to do. And time is of the essence. Every second that is lost is a second that victim is facing death, facing sexual tragedies, becoming a victim, and perhaps even facing unspeakable crimes. Anyway, I'm just happy that we're in the position where we are, Michael, Joseph, myself, and many others that are willing to stand in the gap and fill the void and do things that our law enforcement agencies just can't do or won't do because they're burdened with their daily workload.
Well, and you bring up a good point, Mark. There's a gentleman that I know by the name of Robert David Steele. I don't know if you're familiar with his name or not. He's a commentator now. He is a retired CIA agent, and he made a statement that resonates with me all the time. He can't speak well enough about law enforcement and federal agencies because they're all good people just trapped in a bad system.
Absolutely.
And that's the problem. It's not that they don't care, but oftentimes they might realize, okay, this is a runaway who's going to run away again. Why am I going to go chase after him? They have to think that way for their own sanity. Look, we've all been in law enforcement. We're all, we've all been in the military. We all know what the problem is. Trying to get people to understand what the problem is, that's the biggest issue. That you're right. It's very, very frustrating.
Yeah. Good point.
Well,
Joseph?
one of the things is the resources. And when we go back to law enforcement, and I'll go back to this case in Nevada again. So the solution to this is the task force. So what you do in a lot of counties and states have started now, the Human Trafficking Task Force or the Child Sex Trafficking Task Force. Well, what happened with what we did in Nevada, Sparks, Nevada, in Reno, in that area, developed a child sex trafficking task force. And unfortunately, unbelievably, last week, Hannah, who we rescued when she was 14, by the way, went to rehab, she left again. Now, her first perpetrator was in prison, and this is a 40-year-old that just got out of prison, a gang member, again, manipulated her through drugs and took her. Mom called us right away. We got all the information, where she was, who he was, and everything like that. And we got back to Sparta, Nevada, who is now a member of this task force. So now it's just not a runaway. Now the information goes right to the task force. And within 3 hours of our phone call back to them, to the police task force, they went, had him arrested and picked her up, and she's now in a rehabilitation facility. So the solution is a task force of resources from the different departments, both local, state, and federal. So it won't take too much of the resources from any individual department. And this is an example, this example I just told you about. And if you want me to, I have a voice message right now I could play for you from the mom 2 nights ago, which she called me and thanked me for getting her daughter back again. You want to hear the voicemail?
Sure, please. Absolutely.
It's very, very powerful. Let me grab my phone here. So that's a solution, the task force. And when the task forces now are developing across the nation for this certain situation, just like when we have drug problems, we do have task forces for drugs. We have task forces for gangs. We need to take these task forces with narcotics, these task forces with gangs, because these are the same guys that are doing the trafficking, and put them together and put this knowledge together and put these task forces together. Because again, just like I said, the pimp is the drug dealer, is the gang member. They're all one and the same. So let me get this voice message for you.
Okay.
And here you go. So I'm going to play this.
Hi, Joseph. This is Lindsay Bettis. I'm so sorry to call you this late, but I just needed to let you guys know, or let somebody on the team know, that Reno PD was able to apprehend Hannah. And I'm waiting for Reno PD to get done with their initial investigation of them pulling Barry and her over. And I'll be having them escort Hannah to the Reno Behavioral Center, where I will meet them, and we will get her into treatment. Thank you guys so much for everything I've done. Please call me back. Thank you. Bye-bye.
That was just
Great.
2 nights ago.
Great job. Great
Awesome.
job.
And the solution was the task. Yeah, and that's part of what we do also. Not only do we just, I mean, come on, half the battle is recovering the child. That's only half.
Right.
Now there's the other half. It's now we do it the child, rehabilitation of the child, preserving the evidence, as we know as licensed private investigators, to give to law enforcement. Because if you don't preserve the evidence,
Yep. It's a lot of people, you know, they don't understand the complexities of all that.
You know, there's
go on out there and try to.
Go ahead, Joseph.
Oh no, I was just going to say there are groups that their heart's in the right place, but they do not have the skill sets that police and licensed investigators have to not only conduct the investigation and retrieve the child, but then preserve the evidence used in a criminal or civil proceeding. Go ahead, Mark.
No, I agree. You know, we work with a lot of people, or we have a lot of people around us that, you know, that when they get word that a child is missing, they immediately make a poster. I've done many, but it goes much beyond creating a poster and putting that poster on social media. I just think that people need to recognize that licensed private investigators, many of which are, you know, retired military, you know, retired police officers, people who have the skills, the tools, the resources, the knowledge of the system, that can go out and you know, with the speed of light, gather intelligence, report information, collect information, figure out trends, looking at social media, looking at, digital forensics. Social media is such a huge platform that that it's a treasure chest of information. And Joseph, you're absolutely right when you talked about just a moment ago about looking at social media. That is rich in data. So I guess what I'm just trying to say is that we've got a lot of skills, we've got a lot of know-how, we're passionate about what we do, and we're a tremendous resource in the tens of thousands across the country that are here ready to launch at any given time.
Joseph, before we began the conversation, we were talking about this recent issue at the border. Some people call it a crisis, some people don't. But there has been some recent information this morning that came out from Project Veritas. There was a whistleblower inside of that facility down in Donna, Texas, I think it was, that exposed these conditions that these kids are in down there. I doubt seriously that they were supposed to, but it was an insider that was inside those things, and they kept getting thrown off, and they wouldn't allow media in there for a myriad of reasons, I'm sure, but we won't get into that. So you had a perspective on that in terms of statistics. Can you share that again, please?
Sure. And of course, I'm going to talk about not foreign children, but just American children. And the statistics will make sense because it all has to do with the border. Because we're talking about an evil triad of the cartels. Again, the street gang members and prison gang members. You cannot forget that because that's 90% of all the sex trafficking. I mean, you might have floating around, for example, you want to go sell drugs in this country, right? 90% or so of the sales of drugs are on this triad. If Mark or I decided to go bad, right, and get in the drug dealing industry, right, Mark? If we're not a gang member and we're not joining a gang, they're going to kill us because we're infiltrating on their industry. See, that's how that works. That's organized crime. And now in child sex trafficking, that's the same thing. So this is right here, and I do this once a week. Just 2 months ago, average amount of children that were missing in this part of Southern California, and I'm just going to talk about San Diego County and Orange County, okay, was 5 to 6 children at any one time. Okay, right now, and I just did this, okay, 2 days ago. As we speak, there's 16 missing children, and most of them are of Hispanic descent. And I can just tell you, San Diego PD, Ashley Torres, Maritza Stello. And I'll tell you the names only because it's on the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Haley Elder, Jasmine Pascarella, Zanea Travis, Deza Eckebaugher, Ava Miranda, Zola Moore, Corina Aguilar, Gracia Americon, Andrea Palacios, Gabriela Vidal, Isabella Evans, Alexander Rojas, et cetera, the average age of 14 years old. These all children who have been taken by the gang members, coerced through social networking, through Facebook, through Instagram, through Snapchat, through all kinds of other apps, and coerced from their home, that the gang members now are emboldened because the trafficking lanes are the same as the drug trafficking lanes. As you all know, in Texas, number 1 corridor to Houston, Dallas area, goes all the way up to Chicago. The number 2 corridor right here, San Diego, from San Diego all the way up to Vancouver, Canada. Number 3 corridor, Florida, all the way up through New York and up to the whole East Coast. These same drug trafficking corridors. So if you're number 2, San Diego is for child sex trafficking corridors because it's the number 2 in drug trafficking. It's you already have the corridors set up by the drug traffickers and the cartel members and the prison gang members. Why change it? And that's what's going on. I could tell you about a young girl, 14 years old, that we recovered out of a cartel house in San Diego. It's on HBO. So if you go to Saved in America, HBO Vice, and you'll see it. For 6 minutes, they were with us and we pulled a 14-year-old girl out. They were just getting ready to sell her and move her to another gang faction in Las Vegas before we recovered her. And that's what they do to these kids. They get them from their areas and then they move them. And then they sell them. So the question is, and you're talking about the border, the open border, and how the border has to do with everything. Well, I can tell you what's going to happen with child sex slavery, child sex trafficking. The more you open the border and don't control it for narcotics, the more you're going to have our American children enslaved. And that's just the way it goes.
You had mentioned a percentage under the new administration versus the old administration. And I don't want to use names here, but everyone knows what I'm talking about. So there was a percentage differential that you had put out earlier. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, it's 50%. So far, the statistics show that the percentage of children that are being trafficked here from this country has increased from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children by 50%.
And that's just in 2 months.
That's American children. I don't have statistics for international children,
Well,
but I can just tell you from American children.
Right. Well, if that gives anyone, the idea. I mean, just in the last 2 or 3 months or whatever it's been, if it's gone up to 50%, that's a significant increase. Something's got to tell the average person, even without a brain, that something's wrong. That's just my perspective.
Well, the cartels have a free pass right now, right? They got a free pass to do their thing, and they're the ones who are in control. And that's one of the problems with the delivery. And I say it, I've been saying this since I started talking about this in 2014. These are the people that are running child sex trafficking, are the triad of the street gang members. By the way, let's talk about street gang members. Do you know one of the founders of BLM, the Black Lives Movement, got busted for pimping and pandering for minor children as a gang member, the street gang member.
Yep.
And got busted for selling children. And I'm just telling you, this is where we're at in this country. The street gang members are the bad guys. This is the enemy. The prison gang members, the cartel members, the drug dealers. These are the people that are enslaving children. And until that comes out nationally, and I've been saying it, like I said, since 2014, if you don't know your enemy, how are you going to fight your enemy? And
Well,
that is your enemy.
Joseph, we know
Is your street.
We know our enemy. Our government knows the enemy. The media knows the enemy. But what's happening right now is that these people they're literally being given a free pass to traffic these kids, to bring these kids, separate them from their parents, bring them to the US. And once they cross our borders, then there's no telling what's going to happen. The sad thing is, as we all know, statistics are always several years later. So it's going to be interesting to see what the statistics, once they're revealed in 2023, 24, what the impact of these open borders has had on human trafficking and sexual exploitation of children. I mean, it's happening right in front of our eyes. The cartels have been given a free pass to do their criminal acts, and they're laughing at us. They're literally laughing at us, and it's wrong. And I tell you what, our elected officials, they know what's going on. They're not dumb people. They get intelligence briefings. But you know what? They're turning a blind eye to it, and that is just not right.
Amen. Amen. Thank you.
No, it's absolutely wrong. And you know, anybody, of course, we know, and I know you, Mark, we both have a firm belief that God is on the throne and he's watching what's going on. And he has a special heart for the innocent and for the children. And I would not want to be one of those that are hurting the child.
Absolutely.
Because you're going to answer to God one. Yes.
Yeah.
Mark, I think even Joseph, you and I had a conversation the other day, and I don't think it's going to be too far in the future. You know, God is going to put his fist down on the desk and he's going to say, all right, enough of this shit. We're done. This is how this is going to go. I think he's just to that point, as we all are. We just want it done. And it's going to take some divine intervention. And one administration or one person is not going to be the answer here. Something else has to happen to stop this.
And Michael, you're exactly right. And you know what? It's all on his timing. And we have to accept that, and we have to understand that. And recognizing that, in the meantime, I'm just proud of people like you, both of you all, that want to raise awareness for the masses out there that just aren't. I don't mean this to be a degrading term, but either people are ignorant, and I don't mean that in a negative way, or they're not aware of what's happening right in front of us. And when you look at all the people that are breaching the border, I shouldn't say breaching, they're not breaching, they're walking across freely. You know, they're not aware what is happening to these. They're not aware of what the future is for these innocent, unprotected children. And it's a travesty. It's more than a crisis. I mean, we're talking about altering generations forever. We're talking about life and death. We're talking about heinous crimes, physical, sexual abuse, unspeakable things. And you know what? We've got to wake up. And that's why I mean, I'll get emotional here in a minute, but just talking about this, but that's why I'm so proud of Michael, that you're using this forum, this platform, to raise awareness, maybe to reach 1, 2, 3, 20, 100 people that have no idea what's happening and unfolding, not only in our country, but across the world, every single second of every single day. And if people would just recognize that when they tuck their child into bed at night, that, you know what, their child might be gone tomorrow. And that's a terrible thought. But I just think people need to recognize what is going on in the world and what they need to do to speak up with a loud voice and take action to help stop these heinous crimes.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, guys, I think we're at the end of the time. Is there anything y'all want to tie up with? For the listeners, I'm going to put the Saved in America website up on the under the description. And if there's anything else, guys, just email it to me and I can put that in. If you want an email address, direct, or whatever. I want everyone to know, you know, Saved in America, NAMIC, myself, we are not monetized. We don't ask for money. If you want to donate, wonderful, but we do it because it's the right thing to do. And if you feel in your heart that you want to, you know, donate some money, I'm sure that Joseph could probably really really use it as well as anybody else that does this, because right now I think we've got I don't know 30 or 40 people that have actually taken over the information age away from mainstream media and doing these podcasts, and we shuffle this information back and forth to make sure that it gets out to everybody in the masses, to let everybody know kind of what's going on and who's doing what. So is there anything else that you'd like to say? Go ahead, Bart.
Let me just say one thing. I have 2 points to make. Number one is that parents need to play a more active role in monitoring their children's social media activity. Online, the internet is probably it's probably one of the worst things that a child can be involved in. Social media is evil in terms of it's a way that these people are recruited, they're groomed, they're catfished. It happens every single day. So parents, please step in, monitor what your kids are doing, because you know what? It can save you from having to bury your child or never see your child again. Second point is that I love my brother Joseph. I want you to know that he is a true patriot in this fight against this evil world of human trafficking, and I'm proud to be associated with him. I'm proud to carry his flag, and he's at the tip of the spear. And Michael, thank you for hosting this. I just hope and pray that it will infiltrate the hearts and minds of people that know nothing about this, and will educate them so that they can raise the flag and take this battle on, and we will slay the dragon.
We will. Joseph, any last words?
And my last point, oh yeah, right after my brother Mark, what he was talking about, two very important things. If you know any licensed private investigators, current or retired peace officers or special operators, have them either go to savedinamerica.org or helprescuechildren.org to volunteer, to sign up, volunteer, take the test to become a certified missing and exploited child investigator. And the second point, the most important point, if you are a parent or know a parent that has a missing child, for free, you go to savedinamerica.org or helprescuechildren.org, need our help, and we will help you at no charge.
Great.
Amen.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I can't tell you how honored I am to have you. Y'all have a great night. God bless. Be safe. Talk
Hey,
soon.
Michael.
Yes, sir.
Let's roll.
Yes, sir, we will. Yes, sir, we will. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Blessings, guys.